there, it's Jackie, and this is The Natural Healing Reel. Today, I have Lara Bokovay, and she is not only beautiful, but really has some great information for us today. She's a certified intuitive life coach and a psychic medium. So she brings all of that wisdom to her sessions and readings with each person that she's helping guide through their troubled waters. So I'd like to introduce Lara. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. We were talking about your journey, your whole bottoming out kind of around 2018, I think, was the start of where you really kind of hit the
there was a lot of changes with my corporate job in 2017, and then I left my corporate job.
So the whole corporate world is taking a back seat, and now we're taking all of this coaching, intuitive. So talk to us about what that looks like. How does all that play out?
So a lot of times, depending on what individuals are looking for. So my intuitive side, what happened was I went from corporate and decided to do career coaching. And when I was doing career coaching, so many intuitive messages were coming through. So I couldn't really separate coaching and my intuitive downloads and messages. And then when I started doing readings for people, also in 2018, there was always guidance and coaching that came through my reading. So it wasn't a typical, what we want to call psychic reading or mediumship reading. There was always a lot of like guidance and like step-by-step action that would come through in the reading. So I couldn't really separate the two. And so they became one. So I stopped trying to compartmentalize, okay, and there's this, and then we just created intuitive coaching because it touches on both the modalities of coaching as well as intuitive messages. And then in my readings are more like guidance sessions. So generally it's what is sort of troubling you the most at the moment, or where you're stuck, what sort of led up to that, and then what is to come, and then action steps moving forward. So it's like the readings are like snippet captures or little boosts of, affirmation for them to sort of run with. But yeah, it marries the two all the time.
Yeah, that's really powerful, I'm sure. So we were talking that you were quite young when you realized that you had this gift of you're actually seeing spirit as well. There's the clairs, right? The clair, what are they? The
clairvoyant. Yeah, all the clairs.
Right? So this is just blown open for you, the fact that you can just started, and that was after the passing of your grandma and grandpa, that this started to really come through for you. Share with us about that.
So what's really interesting is and I'll pull it all back, but even when it comes to like intuitive readings or intuitive coaching, one of the things is when I first started more mediumship type of work, one of the things for mediumship is that so many individuals are looking to connect with their loved ones and want to make sure that their loved ones are okay and how they're processing. But once spirit leaves this physical plane, they're good. They're on to their next lesson, their next chapter. And so who is really affected by the loss are the individuals that are still here. And so when it comes to the intuitive reading and guidance, that's when I say there's like action steps, and what is sort of weighing the heaviest on your heart is because it's that individual that's seeking the connection that needs to figure out how to move forward. And it's even though messages do come in and it is channeled from their loved ones and from themselves and their spirit and higher selves and all that kind of stuff, the reality is that individual is the one who needs the tools and to work through what is still holding them in that loss and what they need to now learn from this to move forward. So it is still coaching through bereavement and coaching through grief, if that makes sense.
So, and that's So true. I had an experience of after I believe it was my dad passed, and I was not moving forward very well. I was actually very surprised at how it had affected me. And um, I went and saw this medical medium gentleman out here where we live, and just through somebody who had cancer. And anyway, it was kind of like, you really go and see this gentleman, right? So having, he scans your body and does all this energetic type stuff. But and then all of a sudden he says to me, he starts talking about, who is this, right? And he's going, hooray, hooray, right? And I'm, oh my gosh, my dad's right, right? Like he would say, hooray, right? It was like, and so through just this little bit of a snippet of him speaking through like that he's good, because I didn't know where he was going. He didn't believe in anything. That you have this body, you die, you're dead. That's it, right? And that always concerned me because I just didn't know where he was. Do you know what I mean? And so
where is, if you don't believe in this, are you stuck in limbo somewhere?
We don't know any of that stuff, right? And so I had such a healing from having him be there. And I'll tell you what, I hear him. He's like my business partner. He has walked me through this crazy divorce that I've been through. It's really quite something what you're sharing. So it's what you're doing and what you're bringing to the coaching is really big and powerful. I just want to share for anybody who hasn't had that experience. So.
And the beautiful thing is, even when it comes to your dad, I don't know if I'm just going to start channeling or whatever, but the beautiful thing is a lot of times going back to my grandfather comes in from we all have our masculine and feminine energies, and the masculine in our lives, the ones that we were connected to, are the ones that provide us safety, stability, and support. And so a lot of times when we're going through, like, I know going through business, going through my own divorce, going through the financial worries and all that kind of stuff, my grandfather is so present. He's so present and connected because energetically they're trying to work with us and take care of us, and energetically all that kind of stuff through the safety, stability, masculine, energetic pillars of life. So yeah.
It's wild. It's really quite something because he was just not not of that realm at all when he was here. Do you know what I mean? Like, just one of those that was like, I don't believe in any of that type thing. But so it's pretty powerful stuff. Love that.
Well, going back to, it's like that was my first experience of connecting as a child, spirituality, to something that was so stable in my life. That was such a stability. My granddad was such a stable. We were over at their house all the time. They were so engaged in our lives as kids, all that kind of stuff. So that was such a pillar. It's like it touched based on my own internal knowing. It rooted extra deep. You know what I mean? It really like solidified. Like, oh my gosh, like this is real. You just energetically feel that presence. I was telling Jackie before we started recording, one of the things was when I first was aware of that connection was when my granddad passed away at his funeral. When the cars were leaving from the reception to the graveyard, as we were approaching the graveyard, the first car in the row, this giant buck sort of walked towards the fence. And as we turned into the graveyard, the buck turned away and sort of walked towards the forest. And then when we were going around a circle in front of the grave, sort of saying our final goodbyes, we looked up and there was this buck just staring from the forest, staring at us, sort of watching that. So that was the first moment that was like, whoa, there's something bigger. There's something like from a sign, symbolisms, all that kind of stuff. It was just like, there was every single one of us that was connected, there was no shadow of a doubt that was him.
Yep.
And that was the first time that all connected.
And you were young when and you knew, like that was just natural, intuitive knowing. Love that.
Yeah, you just know. It felt like for me as a 10-year-old, it felt like that the moments in the movie Bambi when you just see this giant, the father or the grandfather stag, the giant buck, just like with that's just it was the same energy. It was the same feeling. Like energetically, it was just like, yeah, there is just no doubt.
That is amazing. I love that. So let's go to so you step into this place in your life where you're hitting the pavement. Things are you're hitting a struggle and a struggle and a struggle. And how do you manage working through issues that are going on? And then how did that look for you while you were then moving into this full-time executive coaching, intuitive coaching? Was that a hindrance
One of
or a
the
help?
So it's funny. My clients always meet me at the place that I'm at. And when I say meet me at the place, it's so fascinating, even as when I began reading individuals. It was just like, whatever message I just worked through or came to the awareness of, all of a sudden I would have a session and the reading would just solidify that. So it was always fun when I had these big tower moments or breakthroughs and then someone booked a reading. I was like, oh, fascinating. I'm so excited to hear what comes out because they all truly relate. And even to this, every time that I read someone, it's always a reflective, like whoever comes in needing a reading is always a direct reflection of a conversation that I had that day or something. So it's like the themes just present and then the individuals present that need the message. So in 2020 or in 2019, my daughter was born. And in 2020, the pandemic happened, the world happened. And in that time, I already made the jump from corporate. So I left corporate in 2018 because of stuff. That was my first big jump. Then took the summer off, got my Bernese Mountain Dog puppy, and spent the summer with my puppy and my pool and just relaxed. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to create something. And then in that fall, I got pregnant with my daughter. And so it was a dance between how am I going to create a business, all this kind of stuff. So just as she was born and I was like, okay, going to go back to work, fall of 2019. She was born in June, fall of 2019. It's like, okay, right. I've created this foundation that I'm starting. I'm ready to grow again. And then just as I start growing while she's napping and all that kind of stuff, then the world shuts down again in March. And then just before her first birthday, I uncovered some truths that really shook up my marriage. And I made a decision right after her first birthday to also leave my marriage. And that I wasn't happy. So that was a huge shift. And in that awareness of, well, what does Lara want? And how do I find happiness? And am I happy? And what do I want for myself? I started doing all this reflection because I thought the spiral that led up to that decision, I thought the spiral was actually just within my marriage, but turned out it was a reflection of everything that I've sort of been already unraveling. Like it was like, so in that time, right, okay, how did I not see this coming? How did I let it get this far? How did I not, and when I say let it get this far, because I'm intuitive, it happened really fast. My guides are like, check this. You know what I mean? It was quite fast in regards to the Band-Aid ripping. But on the reflection, it was just like, right, am I really happy? Am I loved the way I want to be loved? Is this what I want for myself? Is this everything that I want? And why did I allow all the other stuff? Like, there wasn't just the decision from January of 2020, truthfully, till I made the decision in August to take that. That was 8 months of me reflecting on what I want and am I happy and what have I allowed in my life and unraveling childhood trauma, parents, relationships, performance, like all that kind of stuff. So I sort of started ripping off my blindfolds in so many different areas of my life. And so in those moments, I just realized, oh my gosh, one of my biggest shifts in wanting to leave that situation was I had such this awareness and working on what it meant to be loved the way I wanted to be loved. And there was no way that I was going to let my daughter know that that's what she has to settle for. And so there was such an empowering moment for me to sort of say, nope, you know what I mean? Not doing this, not having this in my life. There was such a shift for me to want more for myself, but the catalyst was literally my daughter at the time. Now her father has come a very long way in his parenting, and my daughter has cracked his heart wide open, which is so beautiful. But in that time leading up to that, it was truly, whoa, I need to heal myself because I created this. You co-create your own reality. So it's like, whoa, I created this relationship, wasn't even aware of who I was at the time and my truths and what I wanted and everything I was doing. So I realized that I was just as much of a catalyst for my own kaboom as outside scenarios of myself. Everything for me was my own awareness of, it wasn't just everything that was outside of me. It was, oh my gosh, Lara, you allowed all this to happen and you need to understand why. So you could correct that for yourself. So you're not in this position anymore and you can call in everything that you want for your life. And that I could neutralize and stop the generational patterns so my daughter doesn't also repeat my story. So it's like she was one of the biggest catalysts for my own drive to look for something more, search for something more. But yeah, it was more of a, oh my gosh, I have to stop this. Like, there's no way. And over the time, like it's been several years of deep healing, reprogramming, and finding my inner truth. That's truly what it's been about. But it's been a journey that has unfurled naturally and organically. A lot of tower moments, a lot of upheavals, a lot of challenges. But it's every single time that something else happens, it's an opportunity for me to look inside and say, what's going on? How am I showing up? Does this align organically? Do I feel right in this? And sort of making sure that I'm not repeating any patterns. So it's been 5 years of, I've been in a cave. I've been doing healing work. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't been very social. I haven't really been actively out there and, posting. Like, it's funny because I haven't posted on even my TikTok since October of 23. Sort of, I disappeared too because I was like, whoa, okay, I'm ready for another round of deep healing work. And because of that, because of the work that I've done and the journey that I've been on, now I can take more people even further. So it's like, the further I am in my own healing journey, the further I can bring people, and the more people can come along for the ride, and the more awareness that I have. But every single time something happens that I don't like, I have to go, okay, Lara, what are you co-creating? How are you co-creating it? You know what I mean? You can manifest the positive and you can also manifest the negative. So, like what am I energetically bringing in to my own life?
That's so huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've been on that same journey. It's such an incredible thing. And the only way we can shift it is when we decide to take accountability for the fact that the common denominator here is me.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, that's the thing. Nothing is outside of us. Everything is inside. And so even though 100%, sometimes there's some really crappy external factors of life, the reality is you have you can take the accountability to even the perspective with how you receive it, right? Am I a victim of this? Or what is the universe trying to show me, right? So that's the biggest thing. Life life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And that was one of the biggest shifts for me. Right. Life is happening for me. So every single time something else happens, even if it's weird, wacky, and really, I wish I didn't have to deal with it. It's like, okay, right. Okay, well, this is happening for me. So what is this showing me? What is the insight that I need? Why do I need to have this experience? And it's all for some sort of greater good. You don't need to figure it out in the moment, but I know that it's happening on purpose for myself, for my highest good, for my wherever I need to go.
Well, and I think that's everything what you're saying right there, Lara, is it's all our perspective, how we view what's happening. And I think as a society, we're all victims without realizing it, right? That we're all go into that without even like unconsciously, right? It's just that's what kind of has been set up as a society. And then on top of that is just that whole fact of being able to view yourself and know that what if I look at this, like, obviously this is up for me to release, right? There's something here that wants to like be looked at so that, but we're just not looking at it like that, right?
No, because it's easier.
And blaming and being.
But it's easier to do that. It's so much easier to do that than take accountability. And we've been taught.
But it's not. Like that's the thing. We think that it is. And because I don't think we have the understanding of how to shift that perspective so that we can say, okay, well, this is here for me. It's up for me for a reason. What is this? Right? Yeah. Oh, this again.
All right, here it is. I know this. I've seen this before.
Right? Oh. Yeah. So I think that whole intuitive piece that you have that you're bringing to the table with, like, is I can't even imagine. That must just help people break through stuff. So, you know what I mean? Just because when you have somebody saying, oh, and just my experience of having that gentleman, Thomas Moore was his name, do that session for me. And it wasn't some life-shattering thing, but just having my dad show up there was, I walked out of there with tears of joy. I hadn't had, I was crying every day. I hadn't had tears of joy, and then I didn't cry anymore. It was such a shift, and it wasn't like some big crazy thing, but it was enough for me to realize, okay, he's good, I'm good, right? And then really, once I knew he was there, I could freaking hear him all the time. It was like, okay.
Yeah, once the microphone starts working, then you have to consciously be like, okay, I'm tuning you up for now and moving forward.
But also whenever I was feeling overwhelmed and stuck and like, all these business decisions and this and that's happening or whatever, I could just stop and take a breath and be like, hey, come and help me out here. What do I need to, how can I see this? What do I need to do? Because it was so big. And damn, I'm grateful for that. It was, really powerful.
Well, and like that, and like you said, I am able to dive in a lot quicker because my intuitive messages just come through. And when my messages, my knowing, my channeling, my wisdom, whatever you want to phrase it as, but like, a lot of times we can beat around the bush about different things and I can just drill right in. So my readings or my sessions, all of the above, are quite potent because we can dive in real truthful and real fast. So, my readings and sessions are not for the faint of heart, because sometimes there's things that are uncomfortable because people don't want to take accountability as easily. But the reality is it saves a lot of time and heartache because I could just jump there. Now, as a coach, there's a lot of awarenesses that you need to come to that own internal knowing on your own for you to actually understand it, right? For you to actually register it. But the missing pieces on the outside, I can grab as opposed to another type of practitioner has so many liability components that they can't express their opinions as opposed to mine's just channeled. So a lot of times it is like I'm just speaking, but I know that like these are things that I would have never been aware of if I wasn't open and engaging and exchanging that energy. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm walking down the street and it's like, oh, right, I need to tell so-and-so this message. So it's like, no, once I'm locked in, it all just starts flowing.
That's so cool. And do you see anything while that's happening with when you're coaching with other people?
It depends. It truly depends on what the message is coming through. So when it comes to now, everything just gets channeled. It's my own voice in my head. Before, when I was starting out, I used to consciously try to have different things happen so that I could guarantee the message. I always my grandmother, the one that also passed away, my grandfather's like wife. So my grandmother and I were also really close. And I was telling Jackie of the story of when she passed away and all the birds that came the next morning and that she was just ready to go the day after their wedding anniversary. And with her, she acted like she was always a receptionist or in real estate or all that kind of stuff when she was earthbound in that lifetime. And so it was so funny because once she got up there and once I opened my gifts, she was literally like a secretary. So I could see in my visions when I closed my eyes, she'd be like, okay, next, who's talking to Lara? It would be like she would literally manage everybody. There was doors, it was like a conference room, and she would let the next person into the conference table, like if I was having a meeting, even for my own business or health and all that kind of stuff. She would literally say, okay, like, you know, it was like, okay, Uncle Alex ready, or, you know, so-and-so's ready. Like she would just literally like let them in one at a time to like speak to me.
How cool is that?
So that was fun. And then I did a whole bunch of like mediumship courses at the beginning. Not that anyone needs to do this, but for me, it was just to help with my own confidence, just because I was like, am I actually seeing something? Is this actually real? Like what is happening? And so I did sort of some mediumship training, but they were more like, okay, try this exercise and then what happens? And try to visualize this and then who comes through. So when I was starting my intuitive, I want to call it career, but when I like sort of claimed my intuitive capacity, I was using so many different types of exercises because sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to sit in a room and who's going to sit next to me? And then I'd look and then we go in a conversation. And so that's what I did a lot with my initial clients. And now it's just like, we're diving in, I'm getting messages left, right, and center. Sometimes someone shows up, but really going back to, you know, me saying something for you to know that's them, I'm just going to start spitting facts about your life and you're going to know I'm channeling regardless. You know what I mean? I don't need those signs and symbolisms because I'm not doing those types of connection readings. I'm truly doing readings of guidance. And so that's also shifted how spirit comes through. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a lot of times everyone's like, oh, do you do just those readings? And I was like, nope, that's not what comes through. Because it's still going to come through as guidance. Still, there's going to be exercises. Still, there's going to be like, okay, well, you need to look at this. And you have a support team and they'll be here and look for this sign and symbolism. And I'll say something that connects and resonates, but it's not like the specific messages that I used to get when I was first consciously connecting with loved ones or individuals that have passed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's kind of more natural and organic now, right? Instead of getting in your head and going, okay, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use it, right? Because you now have that confidence of that it's there, right? So you just allow, which is awesome. And so talking about that, the unlearning to perform.
That is I realized I performed in every aspect of my life. I performed in my relationship. And when I say performed, doing anything to potentially influence anyone outside of you is performing. So whether it is family, whether it's friends, whether it's, how you show up romantically with a partner or a lover or whatever, I just realized, oh my gosh, I am performing in every single aspect of my life. How I even carry myself, to the color of nail polish I'm wearing, to, I stopped dyeing my hair. I realized I was truly performing for everyone else, even for myself. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to even performing to what I think is sexy or pretty or all that kind of stuff, the reality is you don't need to do anything. You are that. That is your energy. It has nothing to do with your physical vessel and what you look like and all that kind of stuff. So, I used to think, okay, right, if there's not a lot of money, then there's not a lot of worth. Well, that's distorted. Okay, right. If I'm not productive, there's no worth. Well, that's performing. If there's productivity is performing. Worth, if you equate anything outside of yourself to worth, you're performing. So everything was performing related. And I was, and that's just what's ingrained in us as creatures, as human beings. One of our biggest wounds, emotional wounds, is abandonment. We're all in fear of abandonment. And so everything that we do is to not be abandoned. And so when we do things not to be abandoned, we're performing not to be abandoned, as opposed to just knowing that you're worthy not to be abandoned. There's, you know what I mean? That's a big jump in all that.
And I think everybody has that, right? That our whole, that am I enough, right? In
so
one
I
area
just,
or in multiple areas, right?
Exactly. So when it talks about reprogramming to perform or not to perform, okay, well, what does a successful entrepreneur look like? What does if you're a consultant, it's like, right, okay, to have the results, you need to do this, you need to do this. Well, that's all performing. I'm performing to something outside of me. I'm doing things that don't naturally, organically happen, because I think that, okay, if I do this, I'll be more accepted. If I talk about this topic, maybe more people will resonate. If I carry myself this way or have these types of brochures, I'm once again, I'm performing. Everything in life is a performance. Even thinking, okay, right, every time I do have another speaking engagement, I was like, okay, what am I talking about? Do I need to remember what I've said or what my intro is or whatever the case is? No, Lara, then you're just back to performing again. It's just like, just be your organic self. And that's what, the people that love you and the people that find you and the people that resonate with you is just because they like you for you. It's not because you're trying to do anything with the intention of them accepting you more and liking you more, all of the above. Like, you just have to be you, and the ones that follow and the ones that get you will get you, and the ones that they don't, and you don't need to get caught up in all the ones that don't, because I know that the ones that will relate, that will resonate, that will hear my message will hear it, and that's who's meant to hear it, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, right? Thank God for authenticity. It's such a great thing, because exactly what you're saying, if you're putting it on, first of all, that energy comes across, right? That it's not authentic. And I think that we've lived in a long time in that world where it all has to be, it's got to be this script. And if it's not done this way, then everybody's criticizing you, and then you're criticizing. And that's, I think, totally gone to the wayside. I believe that people are just tired of it.
Well, everyone's exhausted from it, right? But unfortunately, once again, it is the main wound that everyone carries. That is the main wound. So to unravel, that is a big wound to unravel. That's not something that happens overnight. Okay, right. Once again, like I said, I just mentioned at the beginning, so many different facets. It's like, okay, let's look at how you show up performing in a romantic relationship, right? Or how you show up performing as a parent or as a mother, or, like all that kind of stuff. And it's not, yes, performing is related to ego, but it's not just ego. It's just our way, it's our method of survival, because that's what we've, even for walking as a child, right? Even as a child learning to walk, they're doing things and walking towards you because you're clapping. Once again, it's rewarded behavior for performing. Like, it's you ask a baby to perform right away, and they're not even conscious of it, right? That you, the parent, are making your child perform, to eat their food, to sleep on time, to not have a meltdown. That's all you as the parent asking your child to perform, as opposed to accepting what else is going on for them, right? Like, it's like, sometimes we don't want to eat and once again, vegetables might not be a great example, because everyone needs some sort of nutrition at some point. But like, I think everything that you do, imagine doing it without the result of your own discomfort, right? It's your own discomfort if they're not eating their food, or if they're not doing this. That's all your own discomfort. That has nothing to do with them. And what we internalize is that we need to perform in order to be loved. We need to perform in order to be worthy. We need to perform to be the best in our industry. We need to perform to be to hold a partnership or relationship, or we need to perform even as friends. Well, I haven't called you in months, or, I'm not a good friend. Well, why do you? The good friends, you just pick up where you left off, and you always touch base when you really need it. The second that you start having shame or guilt or self-judgment, it's attached to some sort of performance.
And it kind of makes it stressful. It's not an enjoyable relationship anymore, because it's like, if I'm not to know, you're thinking to yourself, oh, she's gonna be mad. Right? It's like, it's not even healthy.
Well, it throws you out of your own truth, right? Because, like, once again, your own truth. I had a girlfriend who's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I haven't messaged you back and this or that or whatever. And I was just like, number one, never apologize for you having your own life. Let's just start there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hi, how are you? But like, never, you don't need to apologize for you living your own life, right? Once again, going back to the word accountability, you just claim, right, I needed this weekend, or right, I haven't spoken to you for a week, it's been nuts, what's up? Just claim what it is for you, as opposed to taking on the fact that you did something wrong, or that, you know what I mean? You don't need to apologize. You just need to sort of say, yeah, okay, I've needed this, or right, I really need to look for this. Yeah, like, claim what it is for you. There's no judgment, no hard feelings. Don't hold it against you, but claim why you needed that space for you, or why you needed that time, or what was going on for you in that moment. And then the rest is sort of history.
Which is just like speaking your truth, just being honest. I think if we all just could understand that is acceptable, and if we just put that forth instead of an excuse or a story that we're all used to feeling that we need to do, so that we're not in trouble. So but it all starts within ourselves, right? So we're guilting ourselves. We're in our own little pattern of, not enoughness, or
it's our own insanity. And that's the difference, is like, whenever truthfully, and when you say the word truth, or when I say the word truth, it's about being truthful to yourself and getting back to your own inner truth and what that is, and reclaiming your truth. Because when you can stand in your truth, and once you even aware and know of what your truth is, you can't be shaken. You can't be thrown off balance. You never feel guilty, because it's all aligned, because you get to this component of like deep compassion and grace for yourself. So it's like, when you truly can claim and know what your inner truth is, then there's no shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? That never comes into play, because you honor where you were, you honor what's going on for you, you honor even mindset, opinions, all that kind of stuff. Once you know, like, no, this is my truth at the moment, this is the information that I've received, this is my opinion, that is your truth. And when you stand in that, you don't get as thrown off. There's not as much chaos. There's not as much self-judgment. There's not any of that, because you speak from a place of your own internal knowing.
So it's a lot quieter up there in the mind. The mind isn't running right? The stories of,
the mind or the body, right? One of the other things is like your body leads the way. When we're stuck in our head, our body leads the way. So it's like, there was a recent experience that I just went through, and I was so upset in my mind. But then I was like, well, what's going on for my body? And it's like, hey, right, I don't have that stress sweat smell. So it's like, my body's not going into fight or flight. I don't feel angry. So I know, like, I don't want to physically grab something. You know what I mean? Like, there's no anger. There's a heavy weight on my shoulders. So there's some sadness, which is okay, but I didn't go into fight or flight. So then I was just like, right, okay, well, even though this is quite upsetting, I also know that my body isn't doing its normal fight or flight run, if that makes sense. Like, my body is calm, my nervous system is calm. So even though I don't like what's happening, I still feel safe. And so I know from listening that, okay, let this unfurl. You're safe. You're fine. Nothing's going to happen. Because I sort of was like tuning into your body, right? Every single time it's like, hey, I want to do all this. Well, if you're still fighting a cold or you're still exhausted, then even though the mind wants to go, the body is saying something else. And so it's finding that balance between the two. You're like, okay, right, what is the story that my mind's telling me? What do I actually feel in my heart? And what actually is my body telling me right now? What are the signs of my body when I'm in fight or flight or upset or happy or is at flow, right? When everyone's at ease, at flow, everyone's sleeping better, you feel good, like, all that kind of stuff. So it's really like a reconnection and a recalibration, because going back to when you're performing and when you're told to perform your entire life, you have no awareness of what your body's actually telling you, because you silence your being, your vessel, you silence everything, and one of my biggest lessons to reconnect with my body was actually to observe my dog. Like that, I think my dog has taught me so many lessons of unconditional love and awareness of that. Truly, we are human beings, but we are animals instinctively. And so when we reconnect with our hormones and our way of life and all that kind of stuff, why we're here, that we're to create and what that looks like. And when we reconnect with our vessels as animals or as a human being, that's quite powerful. One of the biggest things is when my dog, before he goes out, he really stands at the door. He's very intuitive, but he stands at the door, and before he just runs out after a bunny or a squirrel, that's a different story. But when you open the door, he sort of pauses, he smells, he takes in all the things, and he really takes his time before exiting the house, before exiting the safe cave. And I think for us, we're so conditioned to just go. And when we watch any animal leaving, it's like, right, he's paused, he's looked at his surroundings, he knows that it's safe, he'll go out, he comes back in when it's not safe or when he doesn't feel safe. You know what I mean? Like when you watch an animal and how they interact, and all they have is their intuition. So it's like, like when they really connect with their animal being, it's fascinating to be like, right, what's my body telling me, right? What is going on? But there was some big lessons that I've sort of observed and learned through him, through the process of it. So
Yeah, babies and dogs and cats, they just bring you right in the moment, right? They're just
yeah,
so helpful to help us to kind of just be in the here and now for that moment, which out of our head and into our just that moment. And so yeah,
yeah.
I know they're so amazing. So amazing. How old is your daughter?
She's 5, but almost 6. So she'll be 6 in June.
June what?
13th.
June 13th. I have a June 7th baby. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. You have like the best of everything. Dog, baby, no husband, no just kidding.
No,
Sounds like he's come around and he's an amazing dad and there for your and stuff. So I'm really happy to hear.
no, I'm happy that, they that relationship. But once again, I think that contraction that needed to happen, that, like we're had to experience that for all of our own growth. You know what I mean? And he's doing well, and I still am on that mission for, as I hold, that next partner that comes in for me. But it's one of those things that I know that we've all grown through the process and come to those awarenesses. So once again,
How great
all
is
needs to
that though?
happen.
Because not everybody grows long, right?
No, and again, we all at the time, right? At the time, there wasn't. At the end of the day, there's still awareness of like, right, our paths. So that story was beautiful and in the unfurling of it all, but one can still want more. And one, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like, no. I hold that, when you can still want more. And right, like it doesn't need to be, sometimes it's still hard. Like, and when I say it's hard, like I think just here today, like it might have taken 4 or 5 years for that to happen. But you know what I mean? Like that, it definitely was a journey that we both individually have gone on. So
Yeah, I tip my hat to you though, because lots of times that doesn't happen, and so it's good on you guys. That's awesome.
one day at a time.
One day at a time. Yes, I hear you.
One day at a time.
And for beautiful little baby of yours, right? Especially for girls, the dads, right, are so important, and how he shows up for her is that's been my big journey. As I just didn't have a relationship with my dad, and so I've gone through my life playing out that and it's been, yeah.
I didn't have much. I still don't have much of a relationship with my dad. I had a very ugly relationship with my dad. So even my daughter's father, I mean, he was a level up from what I experienced as a child, right? And so he was a level up, as all of our romantic partners are, right? They constantly level up, even when they're ugly. It's still a level up in some aspect of our own awareness or our own experience. And so one of the biggest things was like that he was still a level up from my upbringing. But just because he's a level up does not mean it's even close to the level that I want to call in for myself. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like you sort of, you go through those motions, but no, it's, the more that you reflect, the more that you realize each one of those relationships and experiences are truly another awareness and level of obtaining and also healing that relationship with a masculine in your life. Like from the more of the feminine perspective, it's like, right, okay, this is where I was at. This is the insanity that I co-created because I was in my unhealed feminine and I was in my masculine all the time. And so there's no way that he could even remotely step into his masculine because I didn't give him space to do that. So you learn through those processes. You're like, right, okay, this is what's going on for me. This is, it's like, oh my gosh, I did marry my father. Oh my gosh, there's, like this was the same. Why did I think it was different? Okay, there might have been like a little bit different, but it really wasn't. So, all those things sort of multiply. So,
yeah, I did that a few times. I married my dad a few times, and I really felt that I had clarity, and I saw that it was about my dad, and really felt that I had, come through some huge gateway, which I had. But boy, there's a lot of layers to that, which, yeah, again, back, if we can get back and have a look at, what's happening out there to us is, we're in some energy field and an energy space that's allowing that to happen, right? So I think that the big thing is that how do you navigate that? Like, we don't see ourselves. We can see what everybody else is doing. We see what everybody else is doing right. We see what everybody else is doing wrong. Everybody, right? Like, how do you move through those kind of huge issues without having some kind of support system? Like, I just years ago there was no coaches. All of a sudden we came into this day and age where there was a coach, and it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of, for maybe the few executives, right? But honestly, I don't know how, if we don't have somebody, especially somebody like yourself, which is like over the for and to be able to look and to move through. Because if we don't see it, we can't heal it, right?
Well, a shadow because it's behind you, right? So people who talk about shadow work, no, shadow is truly something that you'd pick up on. And so I'm very fortunate in my journey, even though I did not have a support system or any support system at different times locally. I was very fortunate that I have a cousin who is also another intuitive, that she was actually on the West Coast in Vancouver at the time that we were connecting. And I was very fortunate that I started working with her in January of 2020 about growing my business, not about my marriage. And that's when she got me into, well, what does it mean to be loved the way you want to be loved? And I was like, so that the beautiful thing is I did have her as a constant to witness me on my journey, or witness me when I was raveling. So she could ask questions to be like, that really upset you, or this or that. So then I could start developing the awareness to look inwards. When we are raised in a narcissistic society, and when many of us naturally, because of how society is, have very narcissistic tendencies, it is quite challenging to even have self-awareness. Like, that is so one of like the first, going back to connecting with what your body's saying and what, you know what I mean? Like, your mind can go wild, but if you are, and I'm going to use more of a partnership, but it's like, no, if you're having issues in the bedroom, it's not in your head, it's your physical being saying no. So it's like, what is going on? So it's like, to even the start of just developing self-awareness, and then not even accountability, but just the self-awareness components, like, whoa, I really reacted. There has to be something going on that's triggered me. What is that trigger, right? So it's like, to be honest, that was probably one of my biggest learning curves, was to be self-aware. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we say that we're self-aware, but none of us are actually self-aware. So it's like, one of the biggest things was like, whoa, I reacted, or whoa, I'm really spiraling over this right now. Like, what has hit me? And luckily I've had someone to sort of witness my spiral and then mention that I am. And then I would fight with her and say, no, I'm not, or, push her away, or all the kind of stuff. But at the same time, because we were from the same family, she understood a lot of the DNA patterning that I was experiencing. So she could see it ancestrally, like she could see, okay, right, her mother was that way, I was raised by, you know, someone else in that family, so it would all it's the same patterning, it's the same awareness. But truly witnessing and community are so potent and powerful, and individuals don't realize how important it is to speak your truth and to be honest. Because if we were to actually be honest with our friends, you know, when I was getting divorced, everyone's like, oh yeah, this and that, like, we never liked this or whatever. And I was like, well, why didn't anyone tell me? Like, why was anyone just honest with me? Because then they're worried of me abandoning them, that they would lose their friendship, that they would whatever. And I was like, no, now I would truly like someone just to be honest with me and just to be truthful with me, so I don't have to go through the hell that I've just gone through for the last 11 years. Like, come on, like, if you want to be my friend, be honest with me. And I don't care if I don't talk to you for 2 years. I would rather that honesty from anyone than for everyone just to say things not to ruffle feathers out of their own discomfort or what my reaction's going to be. And that's the biggest. It's like, no, it's like we need to witness. There was this little girl that fell on a bike one day, and her dad just like tore into her for not being safe. And what he needed to do was just ask her if she hurt herself. Like, not, she just needed to be witnessed to say, like, no, it's okay to say ow and cry and scream. Like, that's okay. You know, to mad at and have that energy. She then says, okay, well, I can't be hurt. I can't be this. I can't be that. So it's like, no. And so I literally said, did you scrape your knee? That would have really hurt. Are you hurt? You know what I mean? And so even though there was not much interaction, and I'm not going to get in the middle of someone else parenting, I am going to look at that little girl and say, no, I just saw you. That hurt. Ouch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's okay that you're hurt. Like, you don't need to be, you don't need to be okay. Like, and I think, and I see this with my own coaching clients. It's like, okay, well, you have all these strong relationships, but how have none of them told you the truth? How has no one picked you up and said, let's get you out of here. Let's save you. What's the action plan? Like, you know, like what people need to be more comfortable with expressing what they're witnessing, because when you do that, then it's like, oh, right, I am in pain. Oh, right, that hurt. Oh, right, that went okay. Oh, right, I get sad out of that reaction. It's like, okay, right, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay. So when people can just witness someone, and so that's where the witnessing comes in. So, you know, I witness everyone. I talk to people in the grocery store. I talk to the butcher. I talk whatever. And I'm just, you know, when you can just be real, and when you can just speak your truth, because you're no longer worried of being judged or being shamed or being whatever, when you can just speak your truth, it is so powerful and potent, because then someone feels seen. They don't feel crazy. That's a big one that everyone feels. You know what I mean? They don't feel. So when you can muster up the courage and bravery to speak that truth, there's such a ripple effect. Like, there's such a awareness effect. But it really comes down to, the first step is to get some of your own awareness for a second. Just ask yourself, you know what I mean? Like, catch yourself. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're, you know, upset, if you're emotional, ask yourself why. Like, ask yourself those why questions. Like, what I just did that. And you can get past this, a lot of stuff comes up, even if you can't pull the threads or it's not full circle. You know, the initial thing is just to get your own self-awareness, to know what's actually going on for you, what's going on emotionally, what's going on in your body, what's going on, you know, in your head. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that a true statement? You know, one of the biggest things is, in a lot of the homework exercises, I tell individuals to write things out by hand, right? When you write things out by hand, you can't lie. When you type things on your phone or do voice messages, you can bullshit all the way there. But the second you start writing out like a lie, or a story that you have in your head that's not true, it's really hard to write it. Like it's hard to actually move your pen to lie with your hand. That's just how we work. So it's like, no, write it out, like journal. Like when people say to journal, it's not just a form of meditation and reflection. It's because once you start writing that out, you'll notice right away where you're lying to yourself, and you'll be able to catch yourself in your delusions, right? So that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I think that is probably one of the best things we can do for ourselves, right? Is pick up a pen and paper. And I know that there's so much resistance to that usually when we're in that space. But if we just, and we get in our head, okay, well, what am I going to write? And like, if we can just move past that and just put the pen on the paper and just let it start coming out or whatever, it's incredible. It's an incredible way to be able to see ourselves, right? And see, because I think that the biggest thing is to navigate through all of what is actually going on, because there's the story, but the story is all about an emotion that is like a deep-seated emotion of, usually we're not, it's about love, or that not feeling loved, and all that comes from us learning to love ourselves. And there's all this is simple, but because we haven't had a society where this has been taught, that how we naturally work, like
how we naturally work. We've had a society that taught us the backwards way of doing it, right? That we have had a society that have taught us stuff, but it's against the society goes against.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I think definitely that there is a changing of the guard going on there.
Yes. And so many more people are doing the work, and more people are getting that inner awareness, but there's still, the second that you start trying to do it, how even modern emotional intelligence tells you to do all that kind of stuff, the second that you start trying to follow someone else's method or script, you're still, it's great to have a guideline, but it's important for you to still follow your own threads and your own path.
Because it doesn't land. It's not landing properly, right? So here's the guideline, right? This is kind of the step one. When this is happening, go here, right?
Well, and that's why even I used to do, so you're always reinventing business. And I used to have specific coaching packages and sort of say, 10 sessions would give you this, and 6 sessions would give you this, and, all that kind of stuff. And then the reality is everybody is so on their own journey that you can't do that. So you just can say, okay, right, you definitely need a certain amount of time, and we can connect on all those types of things. But like one of the main things that I haven't really dove into too much group coaching or anything like that is because everyone is so on their individual journey that I could give very vague, big topics, and yes, they would help the masses, but the real inner work, like the deep healing, is so individual to where someone is on their own journey that it's almost like it would be a Band-Aid effect, or just like tossing them something to maybe latch on, as opposed to saying, no, okay, right, they're like the real, like this is actually what's going on for you, so this is what you need to focus on. And this is, so it's sort of, because I as businesses always do, we reinvent, we pivot, all that kind of stuff. It was just like, no, I can't. To result goal was just not realistic for the intuitive coaching that I moved into, as opposed to doing generic life coaching, right? Like trying to do generic life coaching or all that kind of stuff. You're trying to then go through the pillars of life and to see where your satisfaction is in all areas. And you're just like, well, the reality is because you have deep trauma. So let's dive into that because that will really shape and affect, and I say results, like where you get to on that journey if you decide to do the inner work. So
Yeah, I don't know how you don't do the inner work, because it just seems like it's so intense right now. And there's so much that's gone on for these last bunch of years that you kind of believe that it's just you that's, piled up. But I understand now that everybody feeling the of where we have been in the world, just individually, let alone where we grow up from, what we went through, what purpose is here. It's just incredible.
That really, it truly shifts everything and changes everything depending on what else you have, right? Like going back to like, why wouldn't someone want to do the inner work? Well, so many people don't even think that they have that much inner work to do. Once you dive in, you're like, okay, well, right, there's this and there's that. It's like, and once again, there's no such thing as healed. Like even when you get to an awareness of healing, right, and you have this awareness, then you still have to let life unfurl naturally for then you to put what you've learned into practice, right? It's like all this awareness that I've come to, well, it's gonna shift again and I'm going to grow again every partner that I'm with, and all that kind of stuff. Like every time a challenge comes with being a mother, or a challenge comes with the school, or whatever the case is, you're again sort of saying, okay, right, this is an opportunity for me to put in practice what I think I know, but it's not a smooth landing. It becomes smoother the more experiences that you have, but it's like your pilot license, but your landings are still rocky. And so it's like, every single time that you land, it will get smoother and smoother and smoother, but you still need life to unfurl organically, because every time that you throw a different element into the ringer of the experience, it's going to always trigger you. It's going to always throw you off. But the end result, or the goal, is that I can move from victim to not within 30 minutes, right? Like I can move from this mindset to this perspective, rapid speed now, as opposed to staying in any of that emotion or energy or frustration or all that kind of stuff for a long period of time. Now, sometimes people still stay in it longer than others because it's a deep-rooted owie, like that's a deep-rooted emotion. But like the result is to be able to take accountability, have the awareness, and sort of say, okay, right, I'll create my life. I can choose to view it like this, that life is happening for me, that this, and so it just flips you out of that mindset. And when I use the word empower, it's like not even, it is you to know that you are in control with how you process what has just happened, as opposed to the illusion that we can control anything outside of us. The only thing that we can control is internalize it and how we move forward. So I think that's the end result. You know what I mean? It's just like, no, right, whatever kept you sad or angry or hurt, it's being able to move through those to get back into your aligned state of being, or your flowed state of being, a lot faster. That's sort of the result, because I think that unless you're a Buddhist monk up in the mountaintop, that nothing sort of ravels you like at all. Like we're still humans having this human experience, and there's a lot that will still be faced, and it's natural for us to have reactions and have emotions and have feelings. And so it's just being able to navigate those and process those and move through those really, really. And that's the end goal. It's like, how do I get out of the negative? I want to, like parallelograms, like the under the line, like how do I flip it to above the line? Like how do I get back to this? And not an optimistic, positive state of being, but a state of being that that everything that you're experiencing is truly for your highest growth. Like we are truly living out the curriculum that the divine has set for us. Like the lesson plan is already there, and everything that we experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is truly just what my soul needs to go through in this lifetime. And what you need to go through in this lifetime is different than what I have to, even though from our experiences and our conversations that, you know, we're on very similar tracks of experience, regardless of, you know, geographical, you know, like distance, all that kind of stuff. You're still the people that go through it. You still experience, even though the actual experience might be different, what you obtained from those experiences is similar. So like the lesson that you got from that experience was probably very similar to mine, even though your experience was slightly different. Like the awareness that you came through or came to, you know, through that was probably very similar, if not the same, but your experience to learn that lesson might have looked slightly different, right? So we're all trying to get to the same awarenesses, the same knowings, the same internal knowing of worth, and that we are co-creating our life. Like that is where we're all trying to get to, but all of our experiences look different, but the lesson is the same.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And I love that. I like, you know, I've been on this journey and doing the in work, and it's like, you know, still getting triggered, still getting, and just understand, right, that we're human and we're going to be triggered every day. It's just not about whether or not we're being triggered. It's about how long are we staying there. And I have to tell you, I'm really proud of myself because sometimes I would go down into a rabbit hole, and literally I feel like I would come back up months later, and I'd be like, wow, you know, just because you're in the trauma and you're in the, you know, in the story, and it can just, depending on, you know, what's going on, and I had a up of it or whatever, but I literally would sometimes feel like I'd pop up for it and be like, wow, how long was I in that? And it had like, it was like months, it felt like, right? And so, yeah, just having that.
You can't rush it. And that's that, you know, one has to get to, or that inner standing or that inner knowing or that compassion for yourself. It's like, yeah, like some, like have to be in a marriage for 35 years to want to discover that. Some people need to be in it for 10. Some people find their high school sweethearts, and, you know, and then you think, okay, those high school sweethearts that were able to see love in this lifetime, in this round really early, they've gone through the lessons that we've gone through in so many previous lifetimes, right? Like, so it's like, whoa, I'm so happy that they were able to find each other so fast in this lifetime, because whoa, their past lifetimes probably weren't the same, right? You have to get to the state of being. So when we see that sort of happening through everyone else, that is truly part of their journey. Like that is, you know, because I grew up with harshness, the only way that I'll listen is if someone yells at me. And that's just because that's upbringing. That's my knowing. That's when it really registers in Lara, oh my gosh, this is serious. If someone's soft with me, I just won't hear it. And so how it works for me is very different than how it works for others. You know, like how someone can relate something to me is different than what someone else needs to hear. And that's where it's finding people that align with your personality, or, you know, all that kind of stuff, because there's some people that they can't hear what you have to say, and there's others that hear it instantly depending on your experience. So it's like, you know, the result is, yeah, you might, why needs to be on their own for 5 years or 10 years or 5 months, or why one's stuck in this mindset for this long, or, you know, imposter syndrome or whatever the case is. It's like, well, you know, it's understanding, whoa, I needed that much time, and why I needed that much time. Like, what did I experience in the window that couldn't have been rushed, or, you know, that I needed that time to integrate everything and internalize it. So it's like, when we get to that awareness of not even knowing or why, but when we get to the point where like, okay, right, this is obviously what was needed. So then it just shows you to be so much kinder and softer to yourself, because then you no longer get frustrated or angry with yourself. It's like, right, I needed this and this is why. Or, you know what, I have no idea, universe, why this took this long, but it needed to happen this way. Or, you know what I mean? Like, so once you can sort of surrender or give over that you have any control, even over your own journey, right? Like, yes, it's still a conscious choice to choose differently and to be differently and to have that. That is still a conscious choice. That's all it is. You have to choose different. But for someone to choose different, they need different marinating times, right? Like, so it's like, okay, right, you need to marinate 24 hours. You need to marinate a lot longer. You know, like you need months, weeks, years to internalize that, or even shift something to receive it differently, to shift in perspective, to all of the above. But it's to make sure that we're holding ourselves with that grace and compassion, so we don't then beat ourselves up for it taking so long, right? Because that's
because I think that's just constantly what we're doing. We're constantly, being hard on ourselves, not even aware probably that we're doing that. But I definitely really catch myself, when I'm not, unconsciously, moving through something, to just having that perspective and just having that awareness of, oh, there's that pattern, right? Stop. Right.
We're our own worst critics, and we're our own biggest enemies when it comes to self-sabotaging, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody wants to do some work with you, what's the best way for them to, what would it look like, first of all, and then what's the best way for them to connect?
So for a reading, like I said, I do readings and I do coaching. If it's for a reading, you go to my website, www.larabokovay.com, to book a reading. And then if it were to be coaching, some people just want to work with me automatically, but what I would suggest is doing a coaching call, like first, a mini little consultation, just to make sure that we align, to make sure that it's something that I am interested in doing, comfortable in doing, and that you're interested in, comfortable doing, and then we can sort of go from there. But yeah, coaching, to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on my website as well too, or by email, and then same thing too with my reading. So, and everything that I do is over Zoom or FaceTime or whatever that is, and everything is still just as potent as it was in person. We've come to a new age that everything is, all online. But luckily, most of my business was pivoted online before 2020. So just because it was a lot easier to do readings and coaching sessions in between, baby napping. So than it was in person all weekend. But yeah, so that would be to visit my website, and then we go from there.
Yeah, you got a great website. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Hanging out. Yeah, I'd love to catch up with you again soon. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me about how we can become the best version of ourselves. See you next time.